Today we're going to be making venison jerky. So what we've done is we've already ground our jerky. You can find out more about grinding meat in our grinding meat video on this DVD. And we already have our beef. So 1 pound of beef, 6 pounds of venison jerky, and we've used our scale to measure out our weights. So I'd highly recommend getting a scale if you don't have one. They're pretty inexpensive and really handy in the kitchen. We also have here our jerk seasoning, so that's 3 tablespoons. And on this side we have our Cajun seasoning, which is 1.5 tablespoons, and our Insecure, which is a heaping teaspoon. So in the recipe it says to grind your venison and go through each of those steps, and since we've already gone through grinding meat, we've just started off with our ground meat here. We've kind of missed a step where you can mix your beef and venison together and your spices and send them back through the grinder. So another option is if you already have your products ground, you can just go ahead and mix them in a bowl. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to put our 1 pound of beef. We're going to put all of our jerky spice. Try to make sure that we're coating all of our meat with it so that we can mix it in evenly. And our Cajun spice and our Insecure. Now we're going to get our hands dirty. We're going to move the meat around, kind of picking up the underside so it's at the very bottom and bringing it to the top and pushing it down, turning the bowl and doing the same thing. It's going to require a little bit of muscle. Right, so I'm not able to see any of the dry ingredients on top anymore, and the beef is well mixed as well. So I'm just going to start kind of breaking it apart in the middle and mixing those parts in. Just make sure everything's thoroughly incorporated throughout. So your jerky seasoning and your Cajun spice are where your flavoring is going to come from. And then that Insecure adds salt components that are going to keep our bacteria level down so that we won't have any bacteria in our jerky, and also help it dry out a little faster. So make sure to get the Insecure. A lot of jerky packs already have Insecure packets in them, so when you are buying maybe a jerky seasoning, look on the back panel to make sure that it says on there that it does come with a curing agent in there. And if you decide that you want to use a jerky seasoning that comes with instructions, I highly recommend following the directions that are on the package. All right. So our meat is now well mixed and my hands are very cold. We're going to go ahead and cover it and set it in the refrigerator for 24 hours to let all of those flavors really mix in and to keep our meat nice and cold. Alright, so here's our jerky. We've had it in the refrigerator for 24 hours, so it's nice and cold, and those flavors have really had a chance to develop throughout the jerky meat. So we've got our jerky gun, and today we've borrowed our jerky gun from the UW Extension office, which you can borrow jerky guns, you can borrow dehydrators, and everything that you need to preserve your food, so canning supplies and things like that, from your local Extension office. So jerky guns follow the instructions. They're usually pretty similar throughout, all the same. So we've got our trigger and our barrel, so we're just going to attach the two. And then we've got our nozzle and our ring that holds the nozzle in place. We've selected this thinner nozzle, and that's a preference. You can use nozzles that are smaller than this. You can use nozzles that are round instead of thin. So it's really up to you. In our recipe we call for a thin nozzle, and that's what we're going to work with today. So first we need to fill our gun before we put our jerky in it. So we're going to take little pieces of jerky, we're going to take little pieces of jerky meat, and we're going to form them into balls that are going to fit through the diameter of the gun. Push it down a little bit. All right. So we filled our jerky gun. We're going to put the nozzle on the top. Make sure it's nice and secure. Got a little bit of meat on my hands. And here are our drying trays or our drying racks. And we're just going to start at one end and we're going to slowly bring the jerky gun back towards our person. So when you first fill your jerky gun, you've still got a little bit of air in there. So it's going to take a few pumps before you start getting some of your jerky strips out. Just go ahead and pump it. And here we go. And so you're going to keep pumping the trigger in order to get the jerky meat out. It's coming out a nice, even line. That's exactly what we want to see. So the beef that we're using today is 93 to 95% lean. And that's really important because if you use fatty types of meat in order to make jerky, all that fat drips off and the product doesn't dry the way that you want it to, and it doesn't dry in a safe way. So it's really important to use lean meats, which is one great thing about venison, because venison is a very lean meat. So you're already starting off with a lean product. And then when you mix in that beef, you want to make sure that that's also lean. So you might notice that we're putting these strips right next to each other. Unlike with baking a cookie where you have to worry about putting cookies close together and then forming one giant cookie at the end, beef jerky isn't that way. You can put them right next to each other, you can even have them touching, and it's not going to form one giant piece of jerky. They might stick together just a tiny bit, but they break apart really easy. So we put down 2 pieces of jerky, and just to make sure that it doesn't stick to the pan, we're going to use just a standard butter knife. So this is just a plastic butter knife. And we're going to run it under the jerky so that it gets a little bit of a pickup. And that pickup prevents it from sticking when it's done. So just real quick, run it underneath. There we go. Got a little bit of jerky on the end. There we go. And so now these 2 strips of jerky won't stick to the bottom of the drying tray. This is a rather tedious part of making jerky. Great time to listen to some music, to have a conversation, maybe swap stories. So we've piped out our jerky strips, and when we put them in our dehydrator, we put them in so they're perpendicular to one another. So these are going left to right. These are going left, right as well, so we're going to turn them so they're going the right direction. So now we've got them going up and down. So left to right, up and down, left to right. So they're perpendicular. And then we didn't use all of the trays. We didn't have enough jerky to cover all of our trays. So then we've taken our trays and we've left gaps in between each tray, and that allows for more air to circulate around the jerky that's in there. So follow your manufacturer instructions for your dehydrator. You're also going to want to have a thermometer on hand. So you can use a ready-to-read thermometer, you can use a dial thermometer, or what's a little easier is a thermometer probe. So it comes with a probe and then it's an external thermometer on the, so that you can read it outside of your dehydrator. So for our dehydrator, we have to put our cover on. There we go. And we've given it some space around the dehydrator on the left and the right, and even in the back. It's already plugged in, so we're just going to turn our dehydrator on. Before I put our dehydrator on, I'm going to stick our probe thermometer in right about the middle of our dehydrator, so I can keep an eye on the temperature, because sometimes the dial isn't 100% correct. Now I'm going to turn our dehydrator on. Got my probe thermometer. And I'm going to come back and check this in about an hour to see if it's gotten up to temperature. And if it hasn't, then I'm going to turn the dial up or down depending on what temperature I need it in there. We're going to let this dehydrate for the next 7 hours or so, and then we're going to check on it and see if it's ready to eat. So we've moved our dehydrator to the side of the kitchen where it won't be disturbed and allowed it to do its work. It's been about 7 hours and we've been keeping an eye on the temperature the whole time through. And it looks like our beef jerky is finally done, so let's check it. So we've turned off our dehydrator. Time to open it up. It smells really good. That's what we're looking for. So the meat has shrunk some, but not too much. 1 pound of meat turns into about 4 ounces of dried meat. And we want to take our beef jerky and separate it since a lot of it was really close. And then we'll do the final test where we'll bend it and maybe it'll crack, but it won't break. So that's a good sign. See, this one might crack a little bit more. Yep. So we're getting a little bit of crack there. It might be hard to see, but it's not breaking in two. That would be really brittle and dry. So at this point, it's ready to be stored. So we've got our airtight bag. And we'll go ahead and put a couple of pieces that are maybe a little bit smaller that we can just grab ready to eat. Tear our beef jerky apart. We'll label this and store this in a cool, dry place in an airtight container for about 1 to 3 months. Or we can put it in the refrigerator to extend its life a little bit longer, or we can put it in the freezer for up to a year. So enjoy!